Welcome to NOLA.com. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you at University of Phoenix Stadium as the Saints lose in Week 1, 31-19. And I think you can have some mixed emotions after this loss. Some things the Saints did well, some things they didn't do well. And to me, I saw a lot of positives, and yet I still think this team is really kind of searching for what they are offensively, defensively. And when you go up against a team like Arizona, good defense, some weapons on offense, a road game, and I think you just kind of saw the results kind of the way we all thought it would play out.
Yeah, I mean, did any of us pick the Saints to win this game? I don't
No.
think any of us did.
No.
It was going to take almost a perfect game, and the Saints didn't get that. They didn't score enough touchdowns in the red zone. They never really got control of this game. I mean, they were down 14-3 early. And you know Sean Payton, they like to dictate terms with their offense, and they never really got in a position to do that. I thought in the second and third quarters they kind of settled down and started doing some more positive things. But in the end, the same issues we saw in the preseason, their red zone offense and their lack of pass rush on defense, reared their head again today. And I think it could be something, as the season goes on, it could be a problem for them all year.
Right, or you could look at it the other way. They could figure things out and maybe get the ball rolling. So it's weird because you can understand both sides of the spectrum where the Saints, look, they didn't play as well as they should have, and yet there are things that maybe they can improve upon. And so I'm curious to see how this translates from Week 1 to Week 2 when next week, look, Jameis Winston's going to be coming in, and he was shell-shocked today, and then he's going to be in his first road game against Tampa. But I'm curious to see how they bounce back from. But you're right, there are big issues that we saw in the preseason, and we're seeing still Week 1 of the regular season.
So, and if you want to be optimistic, the last time they played a game like this, where they played a previous season playoff team on the road and played them pretty close, was 2011 when they went to Green Bay and they lost that game. It was kind of a shootout. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go 13-3 like that team.
Right.
I don't think we all agree that team's not. This team isn't as good as that Saints team in 2011. But the point is, you can still recover. There's no reason to jump off of a building anywhere or the Crescent City connection. But there are some things that they have to get straight. First of all, like these penalties that we saw in the defense.
Right.
That could be another thing. As much man-to-man defense as they ask the Saints corners to play. These guys are young. And if they're going to play out on an island like that all year long, we're going to see a lot of these holding and pass interference calls, I think, all season long. We're going to have to overcome it.
And I'm curious to see, and what I wrote about is the red zone. Where do they go from here? Look, I understand Arizona, they've got one of the better secondaries probably in the league, and yet Drew Brees threw the ball in the end zone once.
Right.
And it was to Brandon Cooks, and he would have had to have been about 8 feet tall to catch the ball. And I'm curious where that's going to come from. You know they have candidates, Marcus Colson, who did not have a good game.
No,
the drops and the ball skips off his hand, turns into an interception, and a near fumble earlier in the game. And Brandon Coleman, you think you could use his big body. They didn't try that, and look, he had a drop where I know Drew Brees got hit, but the ball was there. It was on third down. He probably should have caught the pass. So I'm curious to see where they go from here because they can't score in the red zone. And they can't be as prolific of an offense as we're used to seeing. Then they're really sunk.
And it's kind of the complementary football we always hear Sean Payton talk about. I mean, this defense we know is not good enough to dominate games, so they need their offense to score touchdowns so they can get those leads and then they can start dictating terms. But the one thing that I would say that I thought was a positive is I thought the offensive line played well. They played well in the preseason, and they kept Drew Brees clean for the most part. They ran the ball, I thought, fairly well. Even Brees said afterwards he felt like they ran for more yards than the 54 they gained, and I felt the same way. They didn't really have any big, huge losses. They consistently ground out yards and kept themselves in good down and distance situations. And another silver lining was the kicking of Zach Hawker. I mean, he was 3 for 3 on field goals. That was something we didn't know how he was going to react in a regular season. So some things to build on, but yeah, look, they can get better very quickly next week at home against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and the Saints obviously need it. You can't start 0-2. Look, we've gone over what happens when you start 0-1, specifically for the Saints. It's a rarity that they get the whole season back on track, and it's an uphill battle. So it's they've got to right the ship quick. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about the Saints in some pretty bad terms
right,
if they can't really get this thing taken care of.
Well, that's a game they have to win. I mean, they're playing at home against the worst team in the division, supposedly, and then they're getting ready to turn around in week 3 and go to Carolina, who started off with a win today. So right off the bat, some two critical NFC South games. So, yeah, they've got to get on the right track next week, and I think they will.
Final issue, and it's a hot topic. What do you make of Sean Payton's decision to punt the ball, less than 2 minutes left, deep in their own territory? Thomas Morstead's punting, and they're down 24-19.
Well, I don't know about you. I felt like it was the right decision at the time. I thought that he might go for it there, but with 2 timeouts, you do the math. They called if they can stop them on 1st and 2nd down, and then get a stop on 3rd down, they're going to get the ball back with a minute left. And at 4th and 6 inside your own 10 or right around your 10-yard line, if you don't get it there, the game's over.
Right.
So I felt like the odds were better. If they were 4th and 1, then maybe Sean goes for it. But I didn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I really didn't either. And I know there's an uproar about it, but if you don't get it, then they can at least kick a field goal and you're down 8 and you're starting over, or they can score a touchdown and it's really over.
Right.
And of course, it's funny. Brees says hindsight's 20/20. They scored a touchdown anyway, and it was over. But
Right.
it just, to me, I don't think that was the end all be all call of the game. You got to make touchdowns, not field goals, and I think that was really the big key.
I think the game was over at that point. I mean, it was going to take a miraculous comeback for the
Right.
Saints to go 90 yards on that defense. That's a good defense. So, yeah, you could second guess it, but I didn't think it was ultimately a game-deciding or clinching decision.
All right, well, that's a wrap here at University of Phoenix Stadium. I'm Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan. Again, the Saints go down in Week 1, start off the season 0-1 as they lose to the Arizona Cardinals 31-19. Check out all of our coverage all week leading up to the Tampa game at NOLA.com and, of course, in the print edition of the Times-Picayune. Thanks for joining us.